All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back here talking about ye olde colonial America. Once again, Mr. Moosack here. I'm highly caffeinated and ready to talk about New England. So we talked about Virginia first, where they settled. And the funny thing is that when the Virginia Colony made their charter, it was declared that the whole area was Virginia. And when we start seeing settlement in New England, this is the Pilgrims or Separatists, what we were talking about them, and Boston, all that kind of stuff. They actually thought they were selling Virginia. So technically the whole place is called Virginia, but eventually it's called New England. We're going to talk about these groups, how they play a role in this whole deal. Goes along with your reading, section 2, on your 2-1 reading guide. So, first off, up in New England, so we're talking the areas of Massachusetts and Maine and Vermont, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, those areas. Okay, you have two groups to really talk about. You have Separatists and you have Puritans. They are not the same thing. Also called Pilgrims up here in Separatists. Puritans, very, very different. Here's the difference, ladies and gentlemen. Puritans, okay, Puritanism was a movement within the Church of England in England. Now, the Church of England was Calvinist. They believed in the institutes of Christian religion from John Calvin. The number one part of this was predestination. Now, to understand predestination, you have to know that to understand Puritanism. Now, one of the biggest beliefs there is that good works do you nothing. Before you are born, according to Puritans and the Anglican Church, God has already decided what's going to happen to you. You are either destined for heaven or you are destined for hell. Here's the problem, though. Okay, you don't know while you're alive what your status is going to be. No one really knew if you were going to go to the good place or you're going to go to the bad place. Okay, and so everyone, had these doubts: if I'm going to the place of milk, honey, and awesomeness, or am I going down a place of hellfire where demons are going to eat me alive? And so people always kind of wondered, what was the sign they needed. Okay, now in Calvinism, one of the ideas that if you took Euro, you know this, is that John Calvin kind of said, listen, if you're going to go to heaven, you're going to know. You're going to be the people who do better works and are more godly and all that kind of stuff. Well, Puritans were a group of were within the Anglican Church that didn't like how the Anglican Church was doing things. Now, Anglican Church was Calvinist, but they wanted to reform the church. Okay, they wanted to make it more churchy, less Catholic. Now, remember, the Anglican Church, if you're reading, had broken off from the Catholic Church with Henry VIII because of the whole divorces and kids and all that kind of stuff that happened. Now, this Reformation was, pretty slow going. There was still a lot of ideas of the Catholic Church still present in the Anglican Church. The Puritans wanted to totally reform and purify the Church of England, make it seem more godly, so you know that you are going to be going to heaven instead of hell. Now, the Separatists are totally different. Now, the Puritans believe these things called visible saints, okay? And basically, you got to show that you're godly churchly status, and that if you're godly enough and churchly enough to be admitted to the whole church membership. And so the Church of England is the entire church of England, right? The king is the head of it. And these separatists are like, listen, I'm in church with people who are going to be damned to eternal hellfire. I don't want to do that. Maybe they're going to touch me or rub off on me or take me with them. And so the separatist group believed they had to break away to make their own church from the Church of England. They were basically the same, right? They didn't want to be in church with those who they thought were going to be going to hell. And so they want to break away, make their own little group, and kind of like, you smell, I don't want to play with you anymore. Think of it that way. It's kind of how it goes down to. And that's what they want to make their break from. So here's where our Puritan groups are coming from, and separatist groups as well. Here's England, okay? And so over here in the woolen districts of Dorset and Somerset and Wiltshire, this is in Western England, also Eastern England around London. These areas are big Puritan areas of England, where most of our settlement from New England comes from. And so we see the 1620 of this group of separatists, about half separatists or so, on the Mayflower come over. They have some soldiers, some guys who are there to, protect or to prospect, that kind of deal as well, right? Miles Standish, who gets a lot of namesake in some of the old stories, as well as non-separatists who's there as well. Okay, about half these guys are separatists. They make this deal with Virginia Company and say, we're going to settle in your jurisdiction. They have a problem, though. They run out of beer. On these ships back then, okay, on these ships, the beer was healthier than drinking the water. The water was gross, nasty, swimming with bacteria that would make you sick, shooting out both ends, essentially. And so On boats, people drank beer because the alcohol kills the germs, and it's healthy for you to be that way. Well, the Mayflower runs out of beer. Okay, that's the story we're told. And this is a cool story, right? If it's true enough, it's a cool story. And they have to make landfall to find fresh water. Well, when they follow, they land was called Plymouth Bay. They left Plymouth in England. Land was placed Plymouth Bay, what is now Massachusetts. And this is way outside what the Virginia Company actually had. So when they land, they essentially become squatters on a piece of land, and they have really no legal right to that section and no legal right from England to establish their own government there. But before they leave the boat, they write this. It's called the Mayflower Compact. Know what this is, first of all, okay? We're going to read this in class. What is the document? It's not a constitution, but it was an agreement. All the guys got together, 41 adult males, said, listen, we'll do majority rule. It's kind of a basic kind of government they kind of set. We agree we're in majority rule. We're going to take each other, that kind of stuff. A little more detail later on. And how it works out. But what it did do, okay, is that led to adult male settlers making the decisions together. They had town meetings, usually held in the church, which was very common, and that's where they decided to sit down, make rules and requirements for their village. Now, both these groups ran something called a covenant theology, okay, and they believe in a covenant or an agreement between the Puritan communities, separate communities as well, and God. And it was this big deal, okay. That was one covenant. We're going to do our best work for you. You're going to make sure we go to heaven kind of deal. We're going to be the predestined people. Now, to make sure that worked well, Puritan communities made a covenant with each other, they said. In these Puritan communities, the whole community was supposed to work together to make sure everyone did the best thing. So essentially, this is a community with no privacy. Everyone's supposed to watch each other and make sure they were following the religious orders exactly right. There was no television. You had to conform to every single thing the church was going to do. If you went outside the lines, that was not good. So essentially, it was this big society where everyone was ratting at each other and saying, "Oh, look at that! They're not praying enough. Oh, they're not reading the Bible enough." It was literally okay. It was okay, right, for people to peek in your windows and make sure you're reading the Bible at the right times, or make sure you're praying all the right times of the day, or that you're doing everything, or that you're giving your money to the church that you're supposed to be giving. And if you didn't do it right, you'd be ratted out to the community, and the community would call you out on that. And they called you out very publicly about that to make sure it happened. You can imagine little Puritans running around, peeking in windows, making sure you're reading the Bible, all those kind of things. But this is okay. They want to make sure everyone, their goal was as a whole community, make sure everyone was doing what they were supposed to be doing. And they all agreed to this whole idea. Because this education is a big deal. This is a very, very educated society in New England. Here's an example of a New England primer. All the education is going to be in religious type stuff, right? But here's a page of their reading book, okay, of, all religious stuff in the Bible, right? Learning the letters by different religious type ideals. And it's a very, very educated side because you had to be able to read the Bible, you had to be able to read the prayers, all those kind of things were very, very important. So here's an example of a Plymouth plantation where the separatists work. Little houses, little communities, very, very close together, so you can keep a close eye on each other. That's important, okay? Not real spread out like you saw in Virginia, right? Virginia's about land and making money and all that kind of stuff. This is about having this Puritan community where you can keep track of each other, make sure everybody's happy. Now, for Plymouth, that first year, things didn't go so hot. Kind of like in Jamestown, half the people died, okay? But people, chose to stay there, right? That first Thanksgiving, if you will, this town survived with, the furs and beavers and fish and lumber, got stuff there. And really, Plymouth itself as a colony remains very, 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 very unimportant. They don't get big. Looking at 70 years later, only have 7,000 people in Adventure. They're just kind of merged in to the bigger Massachusetts Bay County that forms. They really, they actually worried about non-Puritans that were settling nearby them. William Bradford was one of their governors in Plymouth with a separatist community, where Puritans moving in as well. And, they were really worried about non-Puritans springing up nearby, Anglicans and other groups springing up nearby that might corrupt their perfect little site they had. So when they're kind of New England here, you kind of see where people settle, all on the coast here, going up the Connecticut River, all on the rivers, see little towns set up, okay? And really it's a lot different than what you see in Virginia in terms of where they have a lot more cities and towns and villages. Even looking as guide here, you kind of see why people thought they were coming. This is the seal from Massachusetts Bay. Notice you have a Native American on here, and a little way of saying, he says, come over and help us. The idea you were going to that just for yourself, but to save people as well and save Native American, help them out. So Massachusetts Bay Colony is going to be a new thing. It's a non-separatist colony. It's 1629, 9 years later. They were trying to get away from the attacks by conservatives in the Church of England. The Puritans want to, fix those impurities in the church and make it better. They left with a much bigger group, 1,000 people, and they get a colony started in Boston. And you have this huge great migration. So as people settle here now, life's a little easier in a bigger city that they form and put together and start building. You have over 70,000 Puritans coming to America, not necessarily separatists, but Puritans coming to America, wanting to settle down. Now, not all of them, go to, were Puritans, right? 20,000 non-Puritans also came to Massachusetts. So you see a ton of people coming and settling in this Massachusetts Bay Area to settle down and get away from the religious issues of England and be able to run their church the way they feel they should. Well, the first governors was John Winthrop. He was a lord in England, and he wrote this book called Model of Christian Charity about how Puritans should be. And he was elected as the first governor of Massachusetts. He basically said that we have a calling from God to be here. He just said God, predestination, right, has said, we're going to put you right here in this area, whether it be to help Native Americans or to live together in a group. And he wrote this big deal, very famous book, We Shall Be a City on a Hill, the eyes of the people are upon us, saying, we're here to be a shining example from sea to sea. And we'll read this whole document in class about how we should be this better place and promote ourselves as this best place in the world to live at, as a truly godly place. And he was governor for a long time, or assistant governor in Boston. What's really different is that you see a totally different atmosphere in New England versus Virginia. A lot of people weren't dying in this part. Yeah, they died, obviously, but, you're living to 70 years of age, 30 years longer on average than in Virginia. You had huge families that settled, okay, because it's all about the family. And you still had people, it wasn't just guys that were trying to come make money. It was all more about, trying to have a family and that religion live the way that you thought was important. Very patriarchal society as well. Men had all the powers. Father figures control the household. Men controlled the church. They controlled the government. They controlled everything. And those ministers controlled what was important. And so it was very, very male-driven. Women were kind of that, I don't call it second-class society, but in a way second-class society where they didn't have a lot of say in the matters that happened. Now they all some say in matters of the household. But still, the male was still the head person of that house. And we'll look at relation between men and women a little bit in New England in class. Some Puritans were different, okay? Some were rebels, they even called them. Yes, Puritan rebels who wanted a full break from the church. They weren't doing enough, maybe. So like a guy named Roger Williams, here you see him in the picture. Nice flow. He said, you know what, we need to break away fully because we're doing things wrong. He said they didn't give Native Americans fair compensation for their land. And he said, you know what? Why is a civil government controlling my religious behavior? And really, the government of a lot of Puritan places was the church. And so he was put on trial and found guilty of preaching what were called new and dangerous opinions and was exiled. One of the worst things that happened to you in your community was if you were exiled and kicked out of the community, one of the worst things that could happen to you. And so, by preaching against kind of what the establishment wanted, not conforming to what was supposed to be, he was kicked out of the thing. He settled his own area called Rhode Island and plantations. And so he wrote a whole big thing about persecution that happened to him. And so people kicked him out of the area, and you kind of have this same place called Rhode Island created as a place to take those who Puritans didn't like anymore. Rhode Island was basically a dumping ground for those who didn't follow Puritan ideals close enough. And they literally nicknamed it the sewer. Okay, it was the most liberal colony out there. They had universal male suffrage, right? Because in Puritan areas, you can only have a certain property if you're a member of the church. There was no special privileges at all, freedom of opportunity, very, very liberal colony, but it was not seen as what it was supposed to be, the right ideas. You also have Anne Hutchinson as well, who was very intelligent, strong-willed, and a woman. And so she started talking a lot about different things, and she kind of carried all the different extremes, right? And so antonalism, which is this direct revelation, she said God was talking to her directly, is what she started talking about, and that threatened the males who were in charge of the church. And she really, looked at the logical extremes of predestination. Is this really true? Is this really right? And one of the things she said was that holy life was not a sure sign of salvation. And this is what Puritans were all about. They were trying to have the most holy life they could to show that they were going to be saved. And she started talking against this. And she kind of said, well, listen, think about it logically. If I'm going to be saved, I'm going to be saved. Doesn't matter, right? So why should I obey the laws if I'm going to be saved or not saved either way? It's kind of like I have no incentive doing this kind of stuff. And so she was put on trial as well. And as she kept talking, right, she could confound these leaders by using this logic of saying, why should I follow the rules if I'm going to be saved or not saved? It doesn't make any difference. And she said she was talking directly from God. And eventually the leaders banished her away, kicked her out, and she traveled first to Rhode Island, then New York, and eventually all of her family was killed in the Native American attack in Westchester County. When she heard about this, John Winthrop said, hey, look, everybody, God's hand was in this. God's hand made sure that Anne Hutchinson died because she was speaking against what is right. fading off here, we kind of see New England start spreading out. So by 1630s, we move this way, and by 1650s, you can see we have a pretty well settled